Hello, everybody. We'll get started in just a few moments. Drop in meeting details into the Zoom chat. Got my second 20 ounces of coffee, Vicki.
Just starting on my very first big mug of cold brew. Have a rough night, my friend?
No.
Or is 20 ouncer of coffee pretty much par for the course?
Oh, that's par for the course every day. Normally it's not so early, but they're doing construction behind my house and the whole house was shaking. So I was up earlier than I wanted to be.
Sorry
So that
about
moved the
that.
schedule for second cup of coffee up.
All right. Let's hear it for a second cup of coffee. It's the best cup of coffee.
We'll just give it one more minute. Please mark your attendance if you have any opens to add. All righty, welcome to the August 24th edition of the Education SIG. Today, we're going to review our exciting new GitHub repository files, showing you how we're going to continue collaborating on the plan. Talk about a couple business items. Do we have any new friends here this morning? They wanted to introduce themselves?
Yes, this is Jacob Cox with Tritium. I'm turning my camera on now. Sorry.
Hi, Jacob.
I was invited by Tom Ritter. Basically, I was a data scientist with Army Capability Manager Cyber, and just recently came over to Tritium a few months ago, working as a solutions architect for them. And we're doing some work in the space of cyber physical systems, cybersecurity, and one of the things we found that might be relevant to this area was with our cyber supply chain risk management. So we're trying to find out, understand this group is looking at how do we look at open source software and identify and vulnerabilities and protect the users that are pulling that software.
Cool. You may want to also consider showing up at 11 Eastern. 11 Eastern. We have the Vulnerability Disclosures Working Group that might also align with that set.
Great.
I'm looking at. All right. Do we have any other new friends that wanted to introduce themselves?
Well, you've seen me before, but I haven't been in this group before. My name's Dan Applequist. I'm working for Sneak on open source and open standard strategy. In particular, I'm based in London. In particular, I am, yeah, it's fine. Sneak has developer education products. And what I'm trying to figure out, one of the things I'm trying to figure out is how we can work with OpenSSF. And I don't know what conversations have happened so far because I'm coming into this a little bit fresh. But one of the things I'm trying to figure out is how we can work best, how Sneak education products people can work with education work streams in OpenSSF for the betterment of all education of everybody. So, there you go.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. That'll be fun. Anyone else want to introduce themselves to the group?
I can. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike. I got an invite from Dan, so thank you very much. I work at Sneak as well, too. I'm with the Sneak Learn team, so for developer education. I came from the education sector, so I was a professor before in computer science. So I have my master's and PhD in computer science. And I worked in the education sector for about 13, 14 years, still teaching part-time. And one of the big movements that I had was that I wanted to move our institution to open education resources and to use more open source tools in the classroom. And so I started at Sneak about 6 months ago, and I found out about this group, and I want to contribute as much as I can. Yeah, I'm really passionate about this. So anything I can do to help out. I'm still learning about what this group kind of is. I'm in the same boat as Dan here, but I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Glad to have you. I think you'll be excellent additions to our merry little band here. Any other folks wanted to introduce themselves before we move on? All right. Couple points of business. If you could add, if you're interested in collaborating with us through GitHub, through their PR mechanism, if you could give me your drop your GitHub ID into the meeting agenda. I'm going to make a bulk. The Wheeler and I have talked about this a couple times. That the foundation has the ACLs set kind of weird, so I need to go explicitly add folks. Eric bumped into this the other day, so I want to make one bulk request of IDs to give people the ability to more actively collaborate with the group until they can figure out things at the foundation level. So if you could give me your IDs, that would be super groovy. If you're interested, if you're not, don't worry about it.
If y'all wouldn't mind typing them into the attendance grid, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if anyone has any additional opens they want to add, please do so. Let's cover our few items here. Dave, do you want to talk about our exciting new plan repository files?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So based on the feedback from this group, we've done the initial plan review using Google Docs, which is great for commenting, but terrible for tracking changes. So the decision was made to put it into an MD format into Git. Let me see, put the link here. I'll drop this in the document as well. Oh, you already got it. Thanks, Crobe. So we've got a repository here that contains, beyond the README and the proposal summaries, the 3 different sections that we broke the plan out into: collect, curate content, expand training, reward and incentivize developers and maintainers. Those are the 3 subgroups that are going to be kicking off shortly to dig a little more in depth into all the points of the plan. We as the overall SIG wanted to make sure we were generally on the same page from a high level with what we wanted to try and tackle. Now it's time to start going through and figuring out exactly how we're going to execute and move forward on those different things. So feel free to take a look at the different documents. Again, there's a separate document for each section. They are fully updated with everything through the end of last meeting. If anyone has any additional suggestions, and this is going to be part of different working subgroups, please put those in as pull requests, and they'll be reviewed and added in kind.
Any questions, comments, feedback about this?
Maybe one question. I actually tried to merge a pull request, but I wasn't able to do so. That's the idea in the future, that we all have some admin powers to do so, or?
Yeah, my dream is that we will all have the correct permissions within GitHub to do our work. As Dave mentioned, we're going to split up into 3 sub teams. Those 3 team leaders absolutely need to have the ability to approve merge requests. So we'll get that set up, but I want everybody to be able to participate. So I'll be talking with the foundation, but I have to do this for 2 working groups and 2 SIGs. So I want to kind of I want to collect everything for each group and pass that along as one discrete request.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? And on the second item, each of the section leaders, if you could go and send a note out to our mailing list soliciting everybody for times they would like to get together to collaborate. And once those small groups make a decision on what time they'd like to meet, I will make another request back to Jory and Khalil and Jen at the foundation to get a Zoom meeting set up for each one of those calls, get it put into the foundation calendar. And that way they'll become officially part of the family, and you'll have a Zoom link to conduct the meeting. So once each of the subgroups is ready and they feel they have a time, hopefully we can get that in the next week or so I can put that request in so we can start continuing our momentum and filling out the details of the plans. Any additional thoughts? All right. With us moving to this new phase, we thought it might be useful to reevaluate. Does this large group still need to meet weekly, or do we shift to a bi-weekly cadence? So I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to talk about that, express your opinions before we make a group decision here. So do we want to throttle this meeting back and focus in on having the small groups report to the larger group and then work on things like charter and mission? Or do we want to continue to meet as this group every 2 weeks in addition to having the sub teams? Dan, you raising your hand?
Can you just briefly overview what the subgroups are? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 3 subgroups, we're going to have a group of people, and everyone's welcome to participate in every group. But I want to focus the conversation. I want to have a meeting about, first off, collecting and curating content. So there'll be a subgroup of us that get together, evaluate what we have, do a gap assessment to understand what's missing, what we'd like to add. Then there'll be a group 2 will be focused on expanding the content. So these folks will be focused in on potentially writing training, drafting people to help create content, writing labs for tools like SKF. So there'll be more of the materials creation be done as part of sub team 2. And then team 3 will be focusing in on how to reward and incentivize developers and maintainers. So we had a lot of really good ideas about offering badges or conference tickets or grants or scholarships. So I want to have a group of folks focused in on talking about that particular topic. And then as those 3 groups finalize, flesh out the details of each of those individual parts of the plan, we'll ideally come back together, do a final review of what we expect the tasks and costs are going to be. We'll have a comment period for the whole foundation where I'll give the foundation 2 weeks to review and add any additional feedback. And then we will move forward with presenting the plan to the governing board. And I'd like to do that hopefully October-ish would be my dream. We'll see how quickly we can get the sub team set up and moving on forward. Did I answer your question, sir? Awesome. Vicki.
I lost my window for a minute. Anyway, hello. Yes, totally in favor of, first putting down my hand so I don't forget. Totally in favor of switching this down. I think Judy did a great job of summarizing it as far as bi-weekly. Love that idea. Gives us more time to work on the other things. And, going weekly to this point has been really, really effective. I was skeptical, but, Crow, definitely you made the right call there. We made a lot of progress, and we've made a heck of a lot more progress than a lot of the other groups, largely because of that and just how you've run the group. So, big props while I'm on cam.
We've had a great team of collaborators. I appreciate everybody who's contributed to this point and who will contribute as we move forward. It's been a great teamwork. It is the best SIG.
It is the best SIG. Yeah, Dave's also done a great job.
So Dave has agreed to be our section leader to help us around collecting and curating content. Do you have any announcements about when potential meeting times might be? And again, everyone is welcome to participate in all the groups, but I don't want to overload you all with commitments. So, it'll be kind of an opt-in model. I will do my best to show up everywhere, but again, not everyone doesn't have to do the same. So do you have any announcements for a potential time you're eyeballing, Dave? Wah, 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 wah.
I love Zoom. I sent a doodle out to everyone who had expressed interest in participating in that subgroup at the last meeting. The consensus is Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern as the time. If anyone else would care to join that group, please let me know. I'd be happy. Like I said, anyone and everyone is welcome. Hopefully that time is workable for most folks who want to join.
All right. Our expanding the training subcategory is going to be led by our friend Glenn. Glenn, did you get a chance to do anything and poll the group yet? Do you have an idea when you might meet?
No, I didn't pull the group yet. I did start actually working on the document already. Because I thought maybe we agree, in the meeting, what would be the best time instead of, trying to mail everybody. And I also think the new guys who actually are present today would probably be interested to also tag along and share their knowledge and experience in that field as well. I think that's very interesting. So I didn't pick a date yet. I think we have probably like a good chunk of the people here that also wanted to be part of that group. Do we have everybody? I think so. Yeah, and I think we are mostly, all the people are like in USA time. I think I'm almost the only one except the new guy who's in the Europe time zone. But yeah, so I didn't really pick out the date yet or time.
No worries.
I don't know what is working best for everybody, actually. That's a bit the issue.
If you'd like, a lot of people in the foundation use a tool called Doodle to poll for times.
Exactly. So I will probably just reach out to everybody who's in the list to do a small doodle with some options, send it out today. The new guys, do you also want to be included in that?
Let me get my volume to know. Yeah, please send me the invites. I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you guys are working on.
And for the three new folks, if you're interested, I can either hang on after the call to kind of explain what this group is all about, explain where we've been. If you'd like a really kind of like a 5-minute recap, glad to do that afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you for offering that.
You're welcome. And our third category, rewarding and incentivizing developers and maintainers. Did Sal join us today?
No, it doesn't look like they were able to join us today.
I will follow up with Sal and see kind of what the status is on the doodle for that. And again, everybody's welcome to show up wherever they'd like. This group will be focused in on things like scholarships, digital badging, getting integrated with LinkedIn and Indeed and other websites, and then things like scholarships. All right. Any questions about the three sub teams before we move on and talk about Dave's open? Mr. Russo?
I was going to suggest we just move right to that now since it's related to what we were just talking about.
Please.
All right. So I was just curious how we're going to do the Zoom setups for these meetings. And I know you said earlier you're going to make a bulk request. So if there's any additional information you need from me or the other group leaders, let us know, please.
What I would need is a name. So like education SIG, group 1, group 2, group 3, and then the proposed time and time zone. And then I'll fob that over to my friends over at the foundation.
Would you like that in the Google Doc or in an email or a certified letter or, pigeon?
Certified letter, yes.
Send some pigeon.
If you could put the details into the meeting agenda or the GitHub repo, then I will keep, and then at me in the Google document, and I will make your dream come true. Emily.
So I'm not sure how this one is set up. Other foundation non-OpenSSF Zoom account allow for the existing Zoom meeting to be reused at multiple times. That way you don't have to set up new ones for every single differing time for whatever the meeting is. The only contingency there is that you still need to have the account credentials to log in to stream to YouTube. So I don't know if that's an option here, but it would certainly afford greater flexibility and reuse of the existing calendar information. It would also give you
Taking
all
a physical note.
Yeah, it makes doing stuff like this significantly easier to manage. So if you need to spawn like an ad hoc meeting, you could just reuse the calendar invite that's already set up. But they need to have it configured to allow anybody to join at any time.
Based off how the GitHub permissions are set up, I'm gonna guess Zoom is not set up to allow that flexibility, but I'll ask.
One can hope.
Well, you
And the one limit is that you cannot have 2 meetings at the same time with the same account.
Okay.
And you can set that up per meeting. So other meetings can stay as is, and they can go into the settings for that specific meeting as they set one up for our working group SIG subgroups, committees. Let's call them committees.
Committees. I like committees.
Yeah. Yeah, so they can just do that. But great idea, to have one ring to rule them all.
I'll ask. I'll do my best.
At the
You
very
always do.
least, you can put in the request just for this group.
It is the best group, so I think they'll agree. Any additional thoughts about that? Dave, did we address your question? Cool. Let's talk about the SIG's GitHub repository. As with other parts of the foundation, we have a repository that's got some a standard template we're using. So I would like us to go through and review it and make changes. Anyone's able to submit a PR to help us fix things, but I would like to help us. I would like the group to start to define our objectives and the scope of what we feel we want to do. And that might also help inform our 3 new folks today about what we're about. So does anyone take a moment to review the README file and scroll down and look at our objective? That's kind of our mission statement here: to deliver baseline secure software development education and certification to all by our 3 subgroup committees. Is there anything we would like to adjust there? Or is there anything we would like to add to embellish or embiggen that a little bit? Or are we happy with that succinct statement?
Have you discussed the idea of adding something around working with foundation members as like plugging into existing education work streams within the members themselves? I mean, I don't think Sneak's the only organization that has a learning developer outreach kind of efforts.
We've talked
that
about it
fit
as part of
here?
the plan. It has not been part of the mission statement. And I think that actually is going to fall under stream 1. We had talked about, where'd it go? We had talked about polling our members to see if they were able to contribute any content or any expertise towards this effort. So that is part of the plan. It is not stated as part of the mission yet, though. If we'd like to
Yeah,
have,
I mean,
you consider it.
I guess, and I don't want to eat up too much time on your work stream, but I guess I feel like there's a bi-directional thing that could happen there as well. Like that could be part of this work stream 3 that you're mentioning about how to reward developers, or how to recognize people that have this kind of education, and whether or not that fits together with you know, a symbiotic efforts within member orgs, basically. But we could talk about it offline, but just felt like something to mention.
And again, we've talked about it we've had 8 meetings plus 2 meetings in DC. So we've had a lot of conversation, and it's been put into our everything we've talked about should be staged in the Git repo. And
Okay.
as part of our smaller groups, we will be refining that or adding if we see that there's a gap. So if we missed that, you know, pulling upon expertise of members within the foundation. If we see that missing, we definitely can add that into our final proposal.
Yeah, and also I think in my section, we also have a couple of goals and key milestones to actually do that, do an outreach to, well, organizations, foundations that have material and basically want to contribute it back into the open source projects that we are building the capability in, right?
There we go, I found it. Good eye, Glenn. So our goal 2.1. And then 2.2. So we'll be taking those 2 ideas, fleshing them out, and kind of actually putting some actionable things in there. Any additional thoughts or comments on that particular item?
Not for that one, but Judy and I have been talking in Slack that it seems that there is a conflict in the phrasing that we have within the plan regarding primary and secondary education. It looks like on July 20th, there was an agreement to mark primary education resources and younger education resources as out of scope for the group. However, in the plan in section, I think I said it was 2.5.6 or 2.6, sorry, high school and secondary education organizations were called out for engagement. So
And we certainly can adjust that. I have no problem. I didn't, I must have missed that in my review because I was going off the actual plan document when I copied it.
It's totally fine. It was probably me advocating for the existing primary education programs in computer science.
Well, and that was a very popular topic when that came up in the DC secondary meeting. That derailed the whole session because we spun off on how are we going to train high schoolers and little kids as opposed to existing contributors and maintainers.
Yep, it's a very different problem space. So I wanted to call it out here. Judy, thank you for pointing it out, but it does need to be resolved for us to move forward. And I don't think it's appropriate for year 1, but maybe future.
Yeah, and that we are allowed, you know, as we develop the plan, we're staging things we're going to do in the next 12 months, and then the second year of the plan. And we always can, you know, have a backlog and say someday we'd like to address this problem. And that's something I probably would like to state now that we're looking at the objective and scope. We can specifically state scope, primary and secondary education, while important, is currently out of scope. We can add something there to that statement. Vicki, did you have a question or statement?
Oh, I was just going to say, hey, that sounds like a great thing for the scope, but you beat me to it.
All right, so yes, we will definitely add that to the scope that at this time, high school and secondary education is out of scope of our direct efforts, and that may be something that is addressed in the future. So that's a good build. Could you capture that for us, Dave, so I don't forget it?
Yes, someone is typing in right now. We'll make sure we got that clear.
Good, good, good. Now I'll do that after the call before the SIG working group. So any additional thoughts on the objective, which is a mission statement? Anything we would like to add, change, remove? All right. How about scope? Would we be able to put together a clear scope statement? Anyone have any ideas or suggestions on what a written scope might look like?
How do you usually write scope within the OpenSSF?
Great question.
I'm
I have to go
asking-
look. I don't recall. It's been a while.
Because there are different ways of defining it. We can clearly define like these are the things that are at the boundaries, and anything within that is good, and anything outside of those boundaries is definitely out of scope. But there's also the broader question of like anything that improves the overall education from a security perspective of the open source community. And you can say that's your scope. So I'm trying to understand how specific that we need to be or how detailed.
I would like to be a little more refined because we're building a plan that's going to have a budgetary request attached to it. So I'd like to not say secure all the things and have that be our scope, because that's drive a battleship through that. I'd like to be a little more refined. So if, for example, if we stated we'd like to improve the capabilities of open source maintainers, developers, and contributors through assorted education efforts, that might be okay. We can iterate over that.
May I recommend that we talk about what is clearly out of scope first?
Yes. Please. Do you have any additional suggestions aside from
Don't stand up a university or another college.
that's good. We will not stand up a university. I agree. Any contrary thoughts to that?
No contrary thoughts, but the way Emily delivered that line kind of implies there's a story behind it. Which I
Want to
look
build
forward
a
to hearing
university
elsewhere.
Maybe another time.
Yeah, totally another time, but that sounds like a good fun story.
So are there any negative scope items like primary and secondary education, not creating our own university or collegiate program? Any other things we'd like to either back burner or explicitly state we are not going to do? Vicky?
So we are collecting information, we are creating information, and we are delivering information? Or are we leaving the delivery elsewhere?
Yes. We will be creating content. We will be training a group of people to give that content. And we also will be providing tools that people can do it themselves, like SKF, or like David's porting the training into SCORM, the SCORM Connect format, so that a university could take that class and provide that themselves, kind of without our involvement. Does that answer your question?
No, it does. It just having a hard time thinking of scope ideas, but that's just my brain. It has a hard time composing words when other people are speaking.
Well, and we don't have to solve this statement today. We have time, and that's probably something that we'll come circle back to as we break off into our small groups and big groups. So feel free to put your thoughts here in our agenda. We can talk about it on the mailing list, and then we will make it another formal agenda item in the future for the full SIG to discuss more at length once people have had more time to ruminate on it. If anyone has, and I'll state this, Christine, we'll talk to you first.
Oh, no, you had actually said what I was going to say is that we might have like a broad scope, and then in each of the subgroups, the scope would become more defined, and then we could discuss it later.
That's an excellent way to phrase that. Thank you. You all will note as you gaze lovingly upon the plan MD files and the README here, I'm not a markdown expert. As you see things formatting wise, typos or stubs like what's in and out of scope, that notation there, feel free to make pull requests to make those corrections or improvements. All right, so I will leave you with homework that the team should think about the objective and scope items. Please review the initial charter. There are going to be some changes now that the TAC has almost approved the governance PR, the 112. So that they'll be filtering down some changes to the charter files. And we'll do a formal review of the charter as a team once I get those changes in there, and we can talk about how we want to potentially adjust from there. So objective, scope, and then our sub-team, our committee leads, please get those doodle polls out and get me a time so I can get some adjustments to calendar invites. Are there any additional topics we want to talk about today, or can we adjourn a little early? All right. Thank you all for your participation today. Really appreciate it. Anyone that's interested, I will give the 50,000 foot overview as everyone else logs off, kind of talking about what our deal is here in the SIG. I'll give you some links that you can look at to read through. But thank you, everybody. Look for some chatter on our mailing list, and look for some invites coming soon so we can actually start refining and moving those sub plans forward so we can get ready to actually do some education. So thank you all. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
And then whoever wants to hang out, just hang out for a minute. We can chat about the plan.
Everybody wants to chat.
They do. All right, let me stop the recording.
So I have to apologize